Hi, Steve Sleeve. Thank you for visiting. Gothtober 2021 is back. And we're going to do our best to get this game completed. What's the name of it? The Letter. It's a visual novel horror game. We're getting close to the end now. So in this game you play as 7 different characters. And I think we have 2 more characters to go. We have 3 more characters to go. So we're pretty close to the end of this game. So hopefully we'll get this done pretty quick, and then we can actually squeeze one more game into Gothtober before the 31st. So I'll probably be doing until dawn after I'm done with the letter. So let me see here. Let me just get this done. I don't know if you can hear me or not. All right, where is it? Okay, here we go. What is that sound? Oh, is that from the game? Oh, it's a chandelier. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, the last time we were playing this game, there was this like long extended scene between Rebecca and Luke. It was just so long and unnecessary, I think. It could have been much shorter. I mean, that scene in itself actually was like half an hour, probably longer than that. Kylie escort us to the adjacent hall. Who's Kylie? At this hour, the corridors and the rooms lining its sides are empty. Save for the gentle rustling of leaves and the twittering of bird outside and the tapping of our foot against the floor, the whole area stays eerily quiet. Not unusual, though. This is the part of the building reserved for club activities at the end of... Oh, Kylie is the little girl. Reserved for club activities at... Oh, we're supposed to be checking the bathroom. That's right. Okay, so that we can be generously lured towards that bathroom jump scare. Thanks, Kylie. This is a part of the building reserved for club activities at the end of the school day, and with the rest of the school busy with another event, it's only natural for it to be this deserted. Come afternoon, right after class, it will once again be filled with people. For the time being, I focus on the toilets at the far end, heading straight for it. Luke stays behind, opting to wait for the end of this drama instead, obviously not wanting to deal with another person's kid. Meanwhile, Kylie follows right after me, unusually silent as we approach the ladies' room. Sometime before we made the turn down the hallway, she has stopped sniffling and started singing a tune under her breath.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down.
Probably to brace or calm herself. Maybe this is her way of preparing to pull her friend out of her sulk. It certainly reminds me of another person. I make no remarks on it, however. It's all part of growing up, they say. Let her learn. The door is slightly ajar when we get to it, and from inside, the sobs of a girl echo weakly, barely audible even in this kind of hush. Turns out Kylie is not the only one upset about this. Despite the situation, a smile forms in my lips as I call out to her friend.
Hello? Hello there? You're Kylie's friend, aren't you? Melody, is it? She's looking for you.
Children can be amusing sometimes. Granted, they can be exasperating, especially around this age, but the endearing things about them outweigh those. All you need is enough level of patience.
Career day's about to start, too. You'll have to come out, or you're going to be really late for it. Miss Alice won't be happy if one of her kids isn't there. I heard she brought little gifts for everyone who'll behave. Don't you want to receive one?
However, her cries show no sign of abating. They only grow louder. Not close to a wail. Alarming, regardless.
Are you okay?
From where I'm standing, it sounds almost like she's in some kind of pain, and it's not impossible. They do that sometimes, hiding what ails them for fear of a reprimand. If it's like that, coaxing her out might be useless. It also makes sense why she chose the loo furthest from their classroom. Wasting no time, I gesture for Kylie to wait and amble towards the door, calmly so I don't alarm her. At the same time, a distinct sense of deja vu hits me. I've been in this position before, behind a door, with someone crying on the other side, my calls ignored as their cries grow into a wail. Just this past week, actually. Even so, being in the same situation before doesn't bring any comfort. I'm putting up for the child beside me. It's a thick undercurrent of worry trickling into my stomach. I take one last breath, then I nudge open the door. It all happens in a span of a second. I don't make it past 2 steps into the room. Her cries abruptly stop. Light footsteps shuffle behind me, coming to a halt at the door. My heart skips a beat. And when I turn...
Kylie?
Creepy.
Miss Pink? Miss Pink? Why didn't you help her?
My whole body becomes motionless at the sight of her, words catching in my throat and heart pounding rapidly against my chest. This is Kylie, I'm sure of it. Yet nothing in the manner she speaks and the way she tilts her head in question carries the youthful, innocent vibe she always brings with her. As if I'm merely looking at a dead, hollow imitation of the child.
Can't you hear her? She's asking for your help.
But it is not those that trigger a memory. It's those chilling eyes, calling, beckoning.
Why won't you listen to her?
All at once the memory returns to me. A tide that has receded and now returns to shore with an overwhelming force, carrying images of a single moment from days ago. Of a world passing by in a blur, and of features I can barely discern under the little light there was. Not even a week has passed. In this minute, while I keep my eyes trained on the child before me, they return with such unbearable clarity. There are no horrid wounds this time, no blood streaming down a pale face, thank heavens, but lips contorted into small, twisted smile. They brim with venom I've never expected to ever see in a child, sending tiny pinpricks of dread crawling up my limbs and winding up my neck.
You're a bad person. People like you deserve to die.
I can't breathe. Oh God, those whispers and laughters again, judging, mocking, taunting, each scathing word ringing sharp and true against my ears. My throat closes in. My whole body tenses. A chill settles at the tips of my fingers, every digit gone rigid from the cold. With every single draw breath, any struggle for air or freedom, the coils wrapped around my body tighten, dragging me down. A gradual, torturous descent into another bottomless abyss. On and on and on, until I lose touch with myself and the world.
Help me!
Until darkness claims me and... Unexpectedly, a note. In the distance, harsh and piercing, cutting through the thick stupor and shattering the haze without warning.
Are you ladies done with your business here? I'll have all morning to wait for you two.
My eyes snap open, and the wheel shifts into place with a ragged gasp. When I glance up, a different set of eyes greet me.
Are you okay, Miss Pink?
No anger, no vile hatred in them, just plain, sincere concern. Bit by bit, I become aware of my surroundings, and myself as warmth steadily slips back to me. I've reached out for the nearby counter to steady myself at some point, and my knuckles have gone white from how rigid my grip on it is. It's over now, yet the tension hasn't left my body. My heart still hammers hard against my chest in an erratic rhythm, and my breathing still comes in short, shallow bursts. Before me, Kylie fumbles with her hands, utterly unsure of what to do to an adult in what's probably a laughable state.
Did you get sick? Well, I'll go to you, okay? Just stay here and don't move.
No need. Just leave me alone.
Do you know how to fix you? Oh, wait, okay?
I wish I could speak reassurances to her, but I can't shake it off. The dread is there, twisting at my insides in anticipation. Of what? I'm no longer sure. Pushing myself off the counter, I break off into a run, brushing off the anxious look Kylie gives me when I gently push her away on my way out, or the furrow in Luke's brows when I stumble into him outside. Whatever they both saw in my face, I care not to know. Bloody hell, I don't even understand what's happening anymore. The tremors continue long after the last of my classes have ended. Although none of my students have commented on it, I've caught a few sharing anxious glances every time a pen slips from my hand or my shoulders tense whenever called. How unusual it must be for them to see the normally composed Miss Gales become a bundle of nerves. Even the most boisterous ones have given me less grief today. You'd think being a fourth cup of tea would provide any sort of comfort. Or is it the fifth? Is that, weed? Hey God, why does counting matter now? The fact that I can't easily shake it off this time should tell me something. Last time this happened, I passed it off as some lapse in my part, after having been sick the week before.
And it is a natural conclusion.
Those are just stories, centuries-old lore passed by the locals to keep children in line. What place doesn't have those? One of my dad's book even went as far as to describe them as a strong part of Isabella's culture. Tree giants, women who feed on unborn children straight from a mother's womb. Oh, or hell. There's even that one story about a demon baby. All folklore that never had a smidgen of truth in it. Was probably told to scare off the natives there back in the old days. Much like every other one in every other place, the world is more universal than people care to think. But looking at it from where I'm standing now, after staring right into the eyes of that woman, after all the things I've been hearing and feeling, perhaps there's really more to that bloody letter than some awful Halloween prank.
Perhaps Isabella's right all along.
A terrible thing, if true. Though that thought doesn't linger long, thankfully. Soon the ringing of my mobile takes my attention away from it. An unfamiliar name flashes before me once the screen lights up and my brows knit together. Marianne McCullough. Staring hard at the screen, I've tried to remember when I've encountered this person on my contact list. It takes a moment, but when it clicks, my eye zeroes in on the book lying wide open on my table. Loaned from the library almost a week ago. I met the woman there by sheer coincidence. A fellow history buff, apparently. We were after the same book, but in the end, she's given it to me, under the condition that I call her once I'm done. To be honest, I've completely forgotten about it until now. And, well, I haven't really taken a peek at it until today. Normally I'd be done with the whole volume of this size a few days after taking it out. About 1 or 2. Depending on how busy I am. Finding a chance to sit down and read through it has been more difficult lately than I anticipated. One moment I'm busy simply grading worksheets, attending a movie premiere the next, then someone suddenly inviting me out for one reason or another. Days later, a friend stops showing up in her flat right after worrying reports pop up in the local news. There simply isn't enough time to breathe and get a grip on things. I have been flipping through the pages of said book moments ago, though never really reading anything and merely hoping for a distraction, to no avail. My phone gives out another ring, and this time I do not hesitate to answer.
Marianne?
Hello. Here I was starting to wonder if it was a bad time to call. Is it?
No, not at all. I dismissed my last class a few minutes ago. I'm pretty much free for the rest of the afternoon. Unless something comes up. Is this about last time? The book?
Not really. I was hoping to ask you about some other thing.
Oh, sure. What about?
You grew up in this city, didn't you?
It's a peculiar question to ask to someone you've just met, but I answer her nevertheless. I'm more curious where she's heading with this by starting with that.
Born and raised. Third generation migrant. Why do you ask?
So you must be familiar with the local lore. The stories?
Quite. If I'm going to teach about history, I'd like to think I am, yeah? But a family friend would be a better person to ask. If you want, I can contact him for you.
No. Let's just keep this thing between us, okay? It's nothing too big. Alright. I really don't know how else to put this without sounding a bit crazy. But things have been really, odd. Do you remember the mansion I mentioned back when we met? My current project?
In hindsight, I should have expected it would lead to this. She must not have lived here long if she's just asking about this now. I didn't take a week with Isabella and when she arrived, but that's Isabella, superstitious down to the last hair. Though it won't be too far off to think Marianne has only started thinking about this recently. She's working on that damn house itself. I must admit, even I'm curious now, despite living here for so many years and having so many chances to look it up before.
The Ermengarde Mansion, yes?
Yes, that one. And, the thing is, oh dear, this is a bad idea. You know what? Just forget I ever called you about this. It must have been the sunny weather. It's making me sick and see stupid things.
See things?
No, wait. It's all right. I don't mind.
There's a moment's pause before she responds again. She's right in that. This is a silly thing to talk about, especially when what I assume two people who are pretty grounded on their beliefs with regard to these things. I won't blame her if she hesitates.
I can't believe I'm asking you about this.
It's fine. Why don't you just think of it as some form of research?
Well, alright. But after this, we're going to forget we ever had this talk.
My lips will be sealed. Now, what is it about the mansion?
Just, what do you know about it? The general gist. The place's past. What happened to the owners? Anything you can give me.
Let's see. To start off,
I do my best to give her a concise summary. From the time the house was commissioned 400 years ago and who had it built, up to the point it got deserted after the last heir's death, and the deed was passed on the Ermengarde's nearest relatives. Frankly, if it weren't for those urban legends persisting, the house would have already faded into obscurity long ago. Demolished, even. These are all nothing she probably hasn't heard of before, yet there's dissatisfaction in her tone once I finish.
That's all there really is to it?
as far as I know. There's this little bit I forgot to mention about Lady Charlotte Ermengarde's death, but most of those are just theories. Aside from that, this is really everything we've been teaching all these years. Should there be anything more?
No mention of any other weird stuff? Other crazy stories? Or a letter of some sort?
My blood runs cold. Any warmth and comfort the tea I've drank has given me prior has instantly been drained out of me. The phone creaks slowly as my light hole on it turns into a firm grip. The whole letter bullshit is starting to turn into more than a coincidence.
None that I've heard or read of. What does a letter have to do with this?
Oh, no. It was just something I came across. Ignore it. Random thoughts, you know? By the way, I need to run. Thanks for answering my questions.
She ends the call abruptly with only a clipped goodbye, leaving my mind heavy with even more thoughts. The mood around my classroom has gone considerably denser in light of what I've gleaned in that conversation. I don't think Mary Ann's lying about her intent. Her interest is genuine. I'd give her that, but she's left a lot of things out. After the strange encounter at the little girl's room, Rebecca tried to remain composed throughout her day. As her classes ended, she received a phone call from Marianne McCulloch, who asked unusual things about the Ormangard mansion. I get the sense she only asked because something's happening around her too, and if she hadn't mentioned the letter, I probably would have made the connection.
Just what the hell did we get ourselves into?
Of course, there's still a lot of confusing details in this. All of these are just assumptions, no concrete conclusion to be formed with what we have, and if we want to find out what we're really dealing with, I think Marianne's right. There might be something more to those stories. As absurd as it sounds, the very place that gave us that letter might tell us something beyond what we know. And tomorrow night, I have a few hours of that chance at the housewarming party. Totally not an exciting thought, since the place is privately owned now. I can't just wander around. But it's enough reason to keep the dread at bay as I step out of the room, ready to put an end to this day. However, all those good vibes disappear into thin air when I run headfirst into Luke. There's really something in this man. Regardless of how much my opinion of him has changed over the span of a few hours, he simply blasts through every good impression people have of him without care or thought. He doesn't even need to open his mouth. His mere presence does it. In all honesty, I think he's the kind of guy only a mother can love.
You're still here?
Obviously. Who do you think's standing in front of you?
An ass.
Oh, come on, Daisy. You've done better than that. Losing your touch?
Luke, I don't have time for this. I'm heading home, and your face is the last thing I want to see before I leave. What do you want?
Belatedly, I notice his hand, partly raised, almost poised for a knock. At a slight lift of an eyebrow, he quickly drops it to his side and turns to Kylie. She's standing a few steps away from him, holding her hands behind her back and towing at something on the floor with the tip of a shoe. Then he proceeds to make vague gestures at me and the child. He resembles a fish flopping for air with the way he's moving his arms, though I think he's trying to urge her to speak up.
Munchkin, I thought you wanted to tell her something.
You do it, Tio.
This wasn't my idea, darling.
Don't worry. I won't tell Tia what you told me the other day. And this morning.
Luke exhales, rolling his eyes at the ceiling and maybe praying for the universe to grant him more patience. He knows a losing battle when he sees one. He may act worse than a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum at times, but he's no match for an actual child. Nothing better than being served a dose of his own medicine, huh? Once his frustration has been promptly let out, he points a rude finger at me. I do my best to stare the offending digit down, but I can already hear the demand before it's even out of his lips.
You, come with us.
What makes you think I will?
Because little Rugrat here is upset and worried, and it's your bloody fault. I've no idea what happened this morning, but if you don't come with us, I won't be hearing the end of it from her. So do me a favor, Daisy, and just be glad I'm inviting you.
You're asking for a favor, and you can't be bothered to be polite? I don't know. It's been a really busy day for me. I kind of miss my couch.
Daisy, you just say yes.
A pause follows, almost too dramatic. Afterwards, his face twists into something between a grimace and a smile. As it happens, he appears like he's in a lot of physical pain. You would think the man is getting an aneurysm by simply being polite.
Please?
Tio said it'll be his treat.
What? I said no such thing, Munchkin. I only agreed to this because you requested it. I'm under no obligation to feed her.
I promise we'll be quiet the next time I visit.
Oh, all right, but just one meal and make it the cheapest.
He and Ashton will get along famously in that department. On a different front, the offer of free dinner does sound enticing, however half-heartedly given it is. Mostly because Kitty has wisely put on her puppy eyes, and by the second, I find all my choices slipping away from me.
See, Miss Pink? It'll be fun. You don't have to feel sad anymore, okay?
Oh, well,
My mobile buzzes from my pocket, cutting me mid-sentence, and for a second, I'm spared from the act of giving an answer I'll regret either way. Fishing the gadget out, I wave a hand at him and excuse myself. A disgruntled expression is on Luke's face before I turn away. I'd be lying if I say it didn't amuse me. He's as eager to be done with this as I am, but what can I do? Checking, a message from Ashton shows up. Hey Becca, I'll be around Salem World this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Isabella's place after. See ya. Oh, just the usual. Unlike what he does to Zachary, Ashton has the decency to let us know when he's dropping by or he's in the area for some business. From the way it's phrased, it sounds to be the latter. Either way, I'm glad he's at least aware of that boundary. Not that Isabella ever going to let him leave the building unscathed, if he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. I cringe to imagine what she'll do to him. Sighing, I slip the gadget back to my pocket. But looking up to see Luke's utter impatience on his face, I now face a different dilemma. The two of them are still waiting, and knowing that the kind of person Luke is, this is already a grand gesture of goodwill coming from him. all to please this godchild. His denial aside, it's easy to tell he's really fond of Kylie from his actions alone. I kinda hate to ruin that.
Well, Daisy, we're waiting here.
On the other hand, there's Ash. His message doesn't exactly imply he's going to wait, or he's expecting me to be there. But there are matters I hope to discuss with him in person, to put it simply. Housewarming party matters. With inviting Isabella out of the question, I only have Zachary and Ashton. Although the former has already made it clear he'll be busy this week, and, well, Ashton has been my first choice from the start. Even if he detests attending gatherings like this, it's company that counts. We can be miserable together. But that's the problem, isn't it? He hates them, and it's very likely his answer will be a flat no. I'd rather not hear that. If by some miracle he agrees to it, he'll probably be sulking the whole party. Not really a tough choice when you put it like that. Still, I have to pick one. Okay, but only because Kylie asked. Ooh. In the end, my own fondness for Kylie that wins out. Chances are I'll have to endure his presence for an hour or so. If it lasts more than that, I can make up an excuse, a sudden call from a friend, or things to work on. It doesn't seem so bad when I think of the pros and cons. At best, it will be a quiet dinner. At worst, it will be an awkward affair we're both eager to be rid of. I'm leaning more on the latter happening, hoping for the former, of course.
Okay, but only because Kylie asked.
Kylie's face instantly lights up. For the third time today, she tackles me into a hug before pulling away and dragging me by the hand towards the building's exit.
That's alright. I'm sure Tim doesn't mind. You let me pick where we're going to eat. Don't worry, it's just close.
Luke follows closely behind, and perhaps out of some desire to keep the dead air away, I can't resist throwing in a quip.
Keep your distance. You better not do anything funny, you hear?
I'm the one who should keep my distance. May I remind you who approached me first and what you did right after?
Oh, I remember it clearly. But perhaps it's you who needs a reminder. You seem to have never learned your lesson. Can we give it another try? Maybe this time it'll stick.
Maybe this time it'll stick. You think you're scary? Well, I'll show you what's scary.
To my surprise, his tone lacks the usual sardonic note in it, and briefly I pause to stare at him. He quickly shuts his mouth again after and walks ahead of us. All talk and no trousers, like the usual, and for the better part of our walk, except for Kylie's excited chatter, we don't speak. Somehow I have this strange feeling I'm already getting used to this kind of banter with him. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, or a good or bad thing. And amidst this newfound friendship, dare I call it that, Ashton's message lays forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Of all the places nearest to the school, Kylie picks this one, and waiting for food to be served is as awkward as I've imagined it would be. Not the bad sort, though. The pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. So long as we're willing to look past the tactless remark, or we're not exchanging acerbic quips, it's clear he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going as far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once I catch his frequent cheesed off expression easing, whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep. She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own, but it's easy to see some part of him genuinely wants them. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to the nearby bookshelves, after having lost interest in the conversation, however, we both revert back to silence. On our own, we have little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, it does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with it that he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe. Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those. And besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. I'm quite sure he feels the same. So when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand while we wait for our respective meals. But it will be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. Something to pull me away from this place. Someone. Ashton's probably at Salem World by this time, working on whatever business he has there. Maybe if I make up an excuse and leave now, I can still catch him.
Cut that out, it's distracting.
My hand stills, holding the gadget awkwardly between us, arrested mid-pass by his bored tone. He's been quiet for a long minute now, after complaining about how appalling the tea they're serving here is. Before that, he has whined about how uncomfortable his chair is and tasteless the decorations they have here. Previous to that, he has griped about how dull the place is compared to the one he frequents on the upper class side of the city. Well, I'm sorry for being a bunch of peasants, Your Majesty. Figures he'll lose patience soon, having already grumbled about almost everything his eyes can reach. It's just unfortunate he's turned to me now.
Why don't you just look somewhere else?
I can't. If I turn elsewhere, I might end up looking at the bobflock right behind us.
Bobflock? Do I even want to ask?
I don't want to hear it. If it's coming out of his mouth, it can only be either rude or offensive. Regardless, he continues.
Everything looks good. But have you seen the face? True horror.
What is wrong with you? You know, I frown about this in practice, but that mouth needs to be washed out with a particularly potent soap. Preferably by your own mum.
A shame she isn't here.
For whatever reason, that puts an end to that talk right away. He returns to watching his godchild, who has found a particularly interesting picture book and is now poring over it while I turn back to my mobile. Still no message. Would it kill him to at least send a message? Check if I were home? Meanwhile, Luke's silence lasts all but 10 seconds.
What is it with the damn mobile? Are you on a curfew?
He's got the immature act down pat. I'll give him that. Seriously, how old is this guy? Has he somehow been deprived of affection during childhood?
And what is it to you? I I don't think it's any of your business what I do with it.
It is my business, alright? 1, I'm the one paying here. 2, I'm being forced to eat dinner in a place this stuffed and noisy. Lastly, it's been 10 minutes, the food isn't here, and I'm hungry. What you're doing with the mobile is annoying and distracting, when the least you can do is keep things entertaining while I suffer.
That's your problem? Shouldn't you be more worried about how this entire affair looks to other people?
Oh, I didn't realize this was one. You move fast, Daisy. You could have informed me first, you know. Had I known, I would have taken you someplace nicer. Certainly the kind with better food and plenty of good wine.
Why did I ever think this was a good idea? Did it ever occur to you how inappropriate this might look to everyone?
Why should I care? It's only inappropriate if you make it out to be. Relax. I won't do anything to make your boyfriend angry. He doesn't even need to know we dined out.
Boyfriend? I don't have one.
It'll be our dirty little secret.
He's not my boyfriend!
The words come out with more force than I've intended. By the time I realize my slip up, his lips are already spread in a sneer. Heat slowly crawls up in my face.
Oh, so there is someone. You're so easy to read.
Briefly, his eyes search my face. I have no idea what he sees, nor do I care to know. But in the next second, he barks out a laugh, displaying his amusement without reserve to everyone within earshot. In that moment, I know I've flipped a switch in him somewhere, and I've lost my chance to deny his assumptions. Do I even want to? Isn't that the reason why I've been so focused on my mobile? Waiting for another message for him? for a reason to dump this awkward meeting to go after him?
Look how rattled you are. Now the nickname makes more sense. Shy Miss Pink and her cute little crush. The color suits you, by the way. It matches the hair.
It's not a crush!
Classic denial. But in reality, you want him to be yours, and your every move is made to make him notice you. In fact, you don't want him to see you with another man in a non-professional capacity, because he might misinterpret it.
The same thing goes for you, doesn't it? Bloody, yours is even worse. What about your wife? Aren't you concerned she
Your
might
wife.
misinterpret this?
Daisy, just because we tied the knot doesn't mean we have to be joined at the hip at every single opportunity.
Don't be ridiculous. Why else would you marry her if you don't want to be with her for the rest of your lives?
Because, Daisy, she also has other things she can do with her life and friends to spend time with. Granted, I don't like some of them, and I have a few of my own she utterly dislikes. But wifey doesn't have to know my every move. Nor do you know how boring that would be? To be with the same person for all hours of the day, losing sleep over the mere fact they're not with you? Or putting everything you have aside to please them, to have your whole world revolve around one person?
Aren't you just mistaking that for something else? Unlike you, there are other people here who don't share the same jaded outlook you have. Don't lump everyone together just because it didn't work out for you.
And you, my dear, are unexpectedly naive.
What's so naive about it? If you love each other, wouldn't you want to always see them, be with them, to have them focus solely on you? Maybe you haven't been loved enough.
Oh, it's that kind of thing for you, isn't it? The love is eternal, love is a strong emotion shite. A starry-eyed girl pining for a dashing Prince Charming? What's next? Romantic confessions of love? A grand wedding on the beach? Dozens of spawns running around in some picturesque home in the suburbs? How quaint. Are you also expecting it's going to be sunshine and rainbows after? A happily ever after? Please.
What? I never once said. Is all of that such a bad thing to hope for?
Woman, I've been married for 7 years, and I'm telling you, it's far from what you have in your pretty red head. Tell me, how long has this song and dance been going for you and your man? Maybe I am mistaken.
Averting my eyes from him is all I manage to do. But what does his mere 7 years have compared to the 17 I've had with Ash? It's laughable he thinks those two things are even comparable. Ash and I may have never moved past the boundaries of friendship, like what I'm hoping for years. But what we have isn't something anyone can scoff at. I've always been by his side, endured everything with him. I know him better than anyone. No matter what this man, this complete stranger, says, I know there will always be a place for me beside him. And yet...
Come on, Daisy, that shouldn't be too hard. 3, 5, 8, 10, 20.
His words easily seep into my heart like sharp daggers, gradually picking apart everything I've ever been sure of. Despite myself, the doubts resurface and my defenses crumble right in front of my eyes. It's no wonder he sees through me, and as expected, he ridicules it. Restrained, low rumbling, a sharp sound striking the air around us amidst the murmur of people and the soft notes of the music playing over our heads. His shoulders shake, and when his mirth becomes too much even for him, he reaches up a hand and passes it over his face, as if to hold his glee close to him.
Bloody bullocks, this is just brilliant. Oh, mother, why do I always keep running into these things? This day couldn't get any better. I think I'm gonna need a stiff drink after this.
He dissolves into another peal of laughter, but when it subsides, what he has for me are more words, scathing, each of them. The urge to run from here has never been this strong.
Is everything you said how you plan to act, if that man of yours ever ends up with you? Cling to him? Put him on a bloody pedestal? Let him become the center of your universe? Although with how long this seems to be going on, I think you've already done so. Marriage will just be icing on the top. Like some sort of reward for you, isn't it? For being a good, patient, loyal little girl all this time, never looking at another man. He must have been having a grand time with someone pining over him this long. I'm a little envious, to be honest. Maybe also a little surprised he hasn't suffocated from all your attention yet.
Laugh all about it if you want. It's not like you will ever understand.
Luke falls silent. The ridicule in him is gone in an instant, and his eyes meet mine, sharp and imposing. A challenge, but I'll hold it against him with the same intensity, because if there's something I won't let his opinion trample on, it's this. What does he know? However, he's the first one who looks away, focusing his eyes back to where Kylie is, and for a moment, I believe I've won, until he draws in a breath and turns back to me. The words he drops next, though hushed, hang heavily in the distance between us.
You're right. I won't. But I do know not to mistake love for obsession, woman. They are not the same thing.
It rattles. Out of everything he said tonight, this is the one thing that twinges my heart. Maybe it's in the manner he delivers it, the lack of conceit in his posture, or an underlying insult in the tone he takes. The remark is not meant to cut, merely to express a simple truth. This time, it's him who holds gaze against mine. Another unspoken challenge, and I realize that if this happened minutes before, I'd already have an equally searing retort at the tip of my tongue. There's none, but the anger is there, ringing at my insides, prodding at the uncertainties of long kept Isn't it enough? We have the long years we've been together. We have the memories whenever he needs me, until other people came in between us. I've always been the one there. That dedication and loyalty should mean something, shouldn't it? I've always been sure of it, and that one day he'll see it for what it is. In spite of that, in this minute, under this man's scrutiny, my own heart wavers. Now I struggle to find the words. How dare he, though? How dare he just waltz in and act like he can do as he pleases, say what he wants, or trample over other people's feelings? He doesn't know anything about me or Ashton. We've only met a few days ago, and yet he acts like we've been acquainted for years. He hasn't even met Ash. He hasn't even met Ash. How can he say those things about him? The longer I hear his tirade, the more it sounds like he's putting it out of his arse. Putting it out of his arse, out of some misguided thinking. He's better than anyone in this whole bloody city. What a pompous bowhead. Normally I'll ignore him, people like him. He doesn't deserve a single second of my day. But a small voice at the back of my head protests at the idea of simply leaving things here. I refuse to let this go, and I've said my piece and defended myself. Those aren't merely months of harboring feelings for someone he's scoffing at. They're made of years, all of it built upon memories we've had from childhood.
What right do you have to tell me that?
None whatsoever, Daisy. But did you assume I haven't seen that before? Those longing looks. The face of someone who wants something but has yet to get it? Give me a little credit here, woman. I'm not daft, nor am I blind to your silly little feelings. It's plastered all over your face anyway. I didn't even need to try.
A pause comes after, while I wait for him to add to that. He doesn't, but briefly a wistful expression spreads across his face. Surprisingly gentle, as if remembering an old memory from once upon a time, or something he has constantly seen in the mirror. It's gone in the next second. Then he turns his attention on a box beside him. For next few minutes, he contents himself with making a mess out of the paper napkins inside, folding them into clean shapes without any clear intent, before crumpling them in his hand when he loses interest, and dumping them in a small pile in front of him. I allow it to go on for a while before I interrupt him. I'm not done yet then.
And somehow that's reason enough for you.
Not at all. In fact, you didn't even need to stay here and listen to me ramble about it. Go on, walk away, the door's wide open, if you wish to be done with this mindless topic. You certainly won't hear me complaining if we just drop this now. I, for one, am very eager to be done with this stupid nonsense about your man and your...
You don't know me.
He pauses in the middle of folding another paper napkin into a plane and glances up at me.
I'm quite sure we've already established that, Daisy. But go ahead.
And you know not a single thing about him.
That too is true. Are you going anywhere with this?
We've always been together since we were children. We've been friends for a long time. We know each other better than anyone. Compared to those 7 measly years you're so proud of, we've been with each other for almost a lifetime.
Not quite. And a few more years, maybe? It does sound romantic when you put it that way, doesn't it? Not many people get to have someone with them that long. That's what you have going for you, isn't it? Cute years playing hide and seek, going to school together, and sharing lunch boxes. Did he also protect you from bullies? I bet my socks he did. Lucky I don't even remember anyone from my old neighborhood. Well, except for that one Nancy who spat his drink in my face years ago. You better pray I don't find him.
So, you're just going to call it that? Despite what I told you, you're just going to call it an obsession?
It is.
Isn't it?
What? Of course it isn't. Didn't I already tell you?
Did it ever cross your mind how your man would feel about all this?
You think I've never thought of that? Listen here, you.
Or were you expecting he'll simply feel the same all because of some shared history you have? Because fun fact, Daisy, feelings change and people most definitely also change with time. Whoever that person was 10 or 20 years ago, whatever idea you have of them floating inside your head, they won't be the same now.
What are you trying to get at?
Suppose that man of yours wants something else for himself. What if he never returns your feelings the way you so desperately want him to? What will you do?
That's not going to.
Are you going to beg? Tell him to choose you instead? Or are you going to lash out at the poor woman or man who happened to catch your man's attention?
My voice falters. His eyes focus on me. The pieces of paper he has been folding earlier now left forgotten in the space between us, while he waits for my response. However, I can't give him one. He's already aware of that, and it's showing in his face when his lips form a lopsided smirk. How can I when I've had my suspicions all along? One that rears its ugly head every time I simply see the two of them in the same room.
Oh, I hit a nerve, didn't I?
That's none of your business.
It's true, though. The poor bloke doesn't have any obligation to return your precious feelings. Nor can you force him to. That wouldn't be right.
If you're just going to mock me, we might as well sew your bloody mouth shut this instant.
Now, no need to get violent. But come on, 20 years? Gordon, Bennett, if nothing's happening past that mark, you might as well consider your options, woman. Even I wouldn't last that long.
Stop it.
One of these days, I'd like to meet the guy and share a few drinks with him, just to give the poor bloke a break from you. And probably see how dense he really is. I mean, a lovely woman like you chasing after him, and he doesn't give a shite? That's new. It'll be on me, don't worry.
I said stop it! I don't want to hear a word of it anymore!
The chair scrapes the floor as I abruptly push away from the table to stand, looming over him with the most piercing glower I can summon. Anger undeterred by my own ragged breathing and clenched fists. Looking down at him in the same manner he did to me throughout this chat. The only way I can keep my pride intact in front of him and the other people watching this sudden scene unfold. I hate this man. I hate the fact that he can unsettle me like this, turning everything around what I've believed in with his mere words alone. What's more awful? It's how easily those can be replaced. Those can replace the very ideas I hold dear to me. Not because I'm easily swayed, but because in each of them I'm aware there's a sliver of truth. Minutes pass in quiet tension. Some of the diners have already lost interest in the commotion and returned to their meals. A waiter serves our food soon enough, and Kylie makes her way back to our table, unaware. But before I can take a seat, Luke mutters something. The words spoken in the same biting tone he has assumed since earlier. Despite my opinion of the man, I stop to look at him.
So I don't think the Commonwealth of Virginia is anymore.
His eyes are on his food as he speaks, busying himself with cutting a portion of meat on his plate. But what comes out of him only rings true against my ears, above the din of the coffee
Is
house.
that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection? I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
He spears a piece of his food, pops it into his mouth, and that's it. With that, however, he leaves another challenge challenge in the air. Another question. One whole day with this man, and I still can't figure out what his deal is. This time, I don't rise up to it. Doing so means facing a different set of truths I'm not ready to face. Bitter truths. Those are for me to ponder on later, not in front of these people or him. His loathsome face and his sneer are the last things I'd ever want to see if that introspection ever happens. But for all this, I can't bring myself to think of him as someone wholly despicable. The rest of our meal slips by in silence afterwards. Aside from Kylie's occasional chatter, the whole dinner goes by without another word exchanged between the two of us. Somehow we manage to make it through the whole thing without triggering another tension-riddled conversation. A good thing, perhaps. One, because Kylie's sitting in front of us, and two, I probably won't be able to hold a proper conversation with my mind heavy with thoughts. We depart from the coffee house just as the evening crowd starts to thin out. The same wordless silence fills our short walk back to the school, except for when Luke gestures to the nearby flower shop and enters it without waiting for Kylie and I. He emerges minutes later, carrying a bouquet of daffodils with the same softened expression back on his face. Unlike the previous ones, he tucks this one away almost as soon as he looks up at us, a moment he's not willing to share. In my confusion, he merely answers with a shrug and continues walking.
For someone important.
I accept it for what it is, if only because he doesn't owe me an explanation. It does leave more questions about him, each one as baffling as the previous ones. Those are the last words spoken this evening before we head our own ways. Up until I arrive home, I still can't understand him. Here, however, a whole different set of questions await me. And much like everything today, it comes with the littlest of things. A lone note greets me upon reaching my unit's door. Its edges flutter lightly against the faint, warm breeze passing through the small complex. My hand stops short of twisting the knob as I stare at it, though I don't make any moves to take it. Ashton's neat script lines its surface. Dropped by earlier, you weren't around. Any ideas where Scaredy Cat is? I couldn't contact her. Inspector Abigail has a few questions. LPD stuff. Something about her dead co-workers. Anyway, let me know how the two of you have been doing. I'll see you later. Ash. Wink star. The message he left, short and straight to the point, but not without the underlying hint of friendship. He's looking for Isabella, apparently. Something about LPD's investigation of her co-worker's death, but ends its formal tone by checking on me. Us. Any other day, the former part of his message will likely prod at the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Luke and Kylie invited Rebecca for dinner as she was about to leave. Despite receiving a message from Ashton, Rebecca agreed that the three spent the evening at a nearby coffee house. Upon returning to her flat, she found a note that Ashton left her. Yet this time, only guilt fills me, and my eyes briefly shifts towards Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
Is that all you are? Just some lovesick woman craving for another's affection?
That's all she is.
I sincerely hope not. Kylie spoke highly of you.
Have I always been like this?
This selfish? In truth, I've intended to call Ash after that dinner if I didn't catch him here. Invite him to that party like I've planned. There's time and he's still probably awake at around this hour. But my hands won't move. And perhaps it is for the better. until I've had the time to this through. It'll be best if I distance myself from those I've been clinging tightly to. Find a different perspective and see things for what they are. With a soft sigh, I reach for the note and crumple it under my hand. The knob twists open with such ease when I enter this time. Maybe after some introspection, it'll be easier. For tomorrow, I have that woman in the mansion to worry about. The night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Come morning, there's only a hush, a strange sort of stillness unlike the ones greeting me every morn. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. And as expected, the second I step out of my flat, it comes apart, broken by the voices of two squabbling adults, echoing from a floor below. The quiet was nice while it lasted. Shame.
What the hell were you thinking?
I wasn't. Ow! Could you let go?
Not a few seconds later, they both ascend the stairs, with Ashton pulling Isabella by her wrist. She struggles, as she should, but his hold on her remains firm. Freeing herself means having to draw blood, as she attempts to pry his hands off with her other one, or using unnecessary force to push herself away. Neither of which is better than the other. One could potentially end in an accident, while the other means having to hurt him physically. She has the good sense to realize that, at least. However, it doesn't take the desperate edge in her voice when she answers Ashton's temper with her own. So, on they go, none the wiser to my presence.
Do you have any idea how much trouble you could get in?
That's why I'm asking you for help.
Is this what you've been doing these past 3 days? Because this doesn't make your case convincing, Isabella.
Rose died, Ash.
I know. Every single person in Luxford knows. It's on the damn news. But that doesn't mean...
People are missing. Some of those are my friends. And BRC's just covering it all up.
You can't just barge into my office and expect me to do anything about it, right off the bat. This isn't a children's game, Isabella. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol. There's red tape all over this case for a reason. We sure as hell don't investigate things just because some stupid letter spooked us.
Ash, you have to believe me this time. If we don't do anything right now, more people will.
It's been a whole week. This stupid letter prank is getting old real fast. I'm sick of it. It was funny the first time, not so much now.
You're the only one that can help me with this, Ash. Even Rebecca won't. All right, you two are awfully loud. What's going on here?
Both of their heads snap up, almost in unison. A displeased frown is on each of their faces, but this is a necessary interruption. What can they do? People still in their units have already taken interest on the commotion, with some taking a peek behind their curtains, while others are bold enough to creak open their doors, if only slightly. If you don't keep it down, pretty soon our landlady will show up. Getting a reprimand from her is the last thing I want to happen. First thing on a Friday morning, even if this is hardly my fault.
Well, if you want to continue this, you two better do it elsewhere. You're disturbing other people.
Don't worry, we're done here.
No, we aren't. Becca, I looked it up. I called them. I visited some of them and...
Which you shouldn't have done in the first place. Isabella, you're going to create more problems for us with what you're doing. A team has already been assigned to it. Leave it to us.
Your precious team is looking at it the wrong way. Becca, it's not just Rose. There are others.
That last bit strikes a chord, prods strongly at a memory. At that vicious smile already etched deeply inside my mind. The image appears clear enough that, at the mere mention of it, I stumble on my own question.
What do you mean?
The letter, Rebecca! It's not...
It's nothing. If there's really something going on because of that dumb letter, none of us would be standing here. We've all read it, haven't we? But Rebecca's alive, Zach's alive, I'm alive. So for the last time, this isn't a curse. There's a murderer on the loose, and your co-workers happen to be the victims. Give it a rest, Isabella. It's too early for this shit.
Don't you think that's too much for a coincidence?
Not so much. Most serial killers follow a pattern. I'll tell you about it some other time. And anyway, coincidence or not, the point is, civilians like you aren't supposed to get involved. You're putting yourself in danger.
I wasn't chasing after...
Will the both of you slow down and stop arguing for a minute? What's this about your coworkers, Val?
Becca, please don't tell me now you believe this shit.
Sure, in a heartbeat, I'll agree with Ashton. That's how it's always been. Besides having a very good point, really, they're the very same ones he'll make every time I ask too many questions. But the fact of the matter is, what he wants to hear from me right now is far from what I've been seeing, sensing these past few days. It doesn't matter what Isabella or I believe on our own. Something odd has been happening around me, and the letter she picked up is at the heart of this. But however I respond to the question in their faces, only one of them will be pleased with it. Okay, so she wants Ash's dick. We'll help her with that. Belle, you shouldn't be doing these things. Regardless of Isabella's intentions, curse or not, Ashton has every right to feel miffed. He's gone great lengths trying to keep his personal life away from his job. Even if he won't say it, he'll fight tooth and nail to keep us safe. And this time, Miss Cooper's death hit close. Too close to someone who cares about.
That's not what I'm trying to get at, Ash.
Then help me talk some sense into her.
I was about to get to that, Isabella. I know you're worried about those people, but you have to understand that what Ashton's doing isn't simple. He's right. You shouldn't even be involving yourself in this kind of stuff, much less doing things on your own.
I went to him, didn't I? First thing in the morning. I asked for his help.
After you went ahead and did some snooping. And now you're planning another one. Can't you see what's wrong with that?
You won't believe me unless I give you proof. You said it yourself. Evidence doesn't lie.
Concrete proof, Isabella. Not something based on rumors or stupid urban legends. Trust me, Belle. Any day, I'd gladly help you with anything.
I know that. I was only hoping I could fix this before any of you, before I...
She breathes in deep, steadying, and in that moment, something falls behind her eyes as she looks away.
Sorry. I got ahead of myself, didn't I?
A quiet resolve. The same one I saw in her that night from 3 days ago. But this time, it burns brighter. Even Ashton wavers at the sight. when she looks him straight in the eyes, gaze unflinching. Gradually, his grip on her wrist loosens.
Belle, all I'm asking you for is to...
Just this once, Ash.
Her voice, though small and lacking any force, stops him. Along with it, every sound, every noise dies around us. A hush descending as if the world is waiting for her words.
You don't have to come with me, but if I don't do anything, I am going to regret it.
She lays a hand atop his, gentle, pleading, almost intimate if one does not consider the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Please.
Ashton will never tell a soul, he will never admit it even to himself, that it is in that short second that his whole own resolve breaks. The moment the hard edge in his eyes softens, and he relinquishes his hold on her, letting his hand fall limply to his side. Wordlessly, Isabella steps back and runs off, leaving only a muttered thanks and a small, lackluster smile. Only after the last of her footsteps fade away, does Ashton move, breaking the silence with one of his sharp exhales, before reaching up to pinch the bridge of his nose in a gesture of frustration and surrender.
I can't believe she just talked me into that. Don't worry, I'll get her back here.
He's already poised to leave when my own instinct takes over. I reach for him, gripping his elbow with the same unyielding grip, the action prompted by voices whispering at the back of my mind. He's not going to believe me, but he deserves a word of caution. Who knows where all of this will take us, how all of this will end. He shouldn't be caught off guard, beliefs notwithstanding.
Ash, I know you don't believe in those things she's saying. And you know me. I am as less inclined to believe in those as you do. But please, try to hear her out, even if it's not a ghost. Or a curse. I think there's just something odd going around here.
What do you mean?
Weird things. Like the feeling of someone watching you. Or shivers. The room suddenly getting cold.
Like the weird thing Scaredy Cat says, you mean?
To some degree. Look, Ash, I'm not sure what it is. It's bad enough that Isabella goes off like this without telling anyone. I'm just worried something might happen to her if she keeps at it. Talk to her, okay?
As if she trusts me enough for that.
Doesn't the fact that she approached you first about this, instead of me, already say a lot?
A different kind of trust, granted implicitly and never spoken, sometimes too big, too fragile to last. He falls silent for a long moment as he turns it over in his mind. In the end, all he manages to offer is a small nod before he departs, and a promise to, at least, listen to her without the teasing or the jibes. A favor for me, and at least he could do for her. This is as much as I can do for him as well, until I've understood what's happening myself. Hopefully, tonight, where this all started will provide the answer I'm looking for. Isabella and Ashton arrive at Salem while having an argument about the missing BRC employee's investigation. Annoyed by the noise, Rebecca interfered and in the end asked Ashton to keep an open mind. Except the whole thing's off to a bad start, and all of a sudden, whenever Isabella claims dwelling in this mansion becomes the least of my concern. Of all the cabbies in Lexbourne, I've had a chance upon the superstitious one. I have the chance upon the superstitious one. Still not as bad as finding out your car starter refuses to crank on when it was still working this morning, yes? But it's equally as frustrating when you're forced to walk the rest of your way. All because the driver got spooked. Isabella and him will get along so well. I do get his reasons. After all, I've had my fair taste of the bazaar lately. all of which might have been brought upon by the letter Isabella found here. But you'd think he'd at least be charitable enough to take me a little closer to the house itself, not at a distance 15 minutes away from it by foot. Good thing I'm not wearing anything too formal or constricting. Otherwise, that short walk would have likely put me in a bad mood. Long before I have to suffer in a room full of strangers tonight. Although, this soon proves to be a problem the second the driveway comes into view and I near the entrance. Severely underdressed is a total understatement to describe how I look. Cars worth more than my own apartment and childhood home combined line the mansion's front yard. Men and women decked out in their best also flock near the entrance. Most are eager for the festivities to start, while some are simply idling about, enjoying the warm afternoon sun before it sets. But once the woman standing at the front porch speaks, their undivided attention immediately shifts to her. Probably Mrs. Wright, from the confident manner she holds herself among present company. This, despite a far simpler appearance than the rest of her own guests, while not having her husband beside her, a trait worthy of utmost admiration at best. At worst, she's the envy of every woman, the subject of every gossip in Luxbourne.
Welcome everyone.
And Mum said we could have been good friends. I can't even picture myself mingling with the kind of guest she has. Though I admit she does seem familiar now that I've seen her this close. Memories of sitting in the vanity, not mine, being dressed in clothes too fancy for my tastes. They flit briefly in my mind until her cheerful tone rises above the buzz of an enraptured audience again.
Please make yourselves at home.
I wish I could share enthusiasm, really. But being surrounded by all this extravagance, for the lack of a better term, merely makes me dread how the rest of the night might go. I shouldn't have let Luke's words affect me like that. I should have just gone ahead and asked Ashton like I've planned. If you were here, then I won't have to...
Be careful with Shirley, alright?
The rest of that thought dies in my mind at once. A moment of astonishment overcomes me before confusion sets in seconds later. It takes another for my body to catch up. Once it does, when I finally turn to see it for myself, it's his familiar mop of hair that catches my eyes first. And there he is, almost an arm's reach if it isn't for the guests standing between us. Ashton Frey, standing in the Armengard Mansion's driveway, with an air too lackadaisical for someone who absolutely abhors parties of any form. Or has any business here, as far as I know. The picture it forms is too bizarre for me that my mouth speaks out ahead of any coherent thought.
Ashton?
He swivels on his heel with an equally puzzled face. An odd expression flashes momentarily across it once he sees me, although he blinks it away before I can argue out what it is exactly.
Becca, what are you doing here?
I was invited.
Really? I had no idea you were friends with the host.
Well, it's my parents, actually. But that's beside the point. What are you doing here? You hate parties.
I still do. I'm just here on behalf of a friend.
That in itself is weird coming from him. It doesn't help that he isn't even making an effort to spare a glance my way when he answers. Instead, they're focused at some point in the crowd. His gaze darting between people walking past until a small frown forms in his face.
That's rare. Do you have someone with you then?
Nope, just me. I won't be staying long.
Well, if that's the case, maybe you and I can...
Chief?
Ashton, what's...
Unexpectedly, he places a hand on my shoulder, stopping me mid-sentence. He still has a distracted look on him, except this time, His eyes are sharper, as he has found what or who he's been searching for among the throng of partygoers earlier.
Sorry, Becca. I need to. There's something I need to check for a bit. I'll talk to you later. Do you have a ride home?
No, I had to take a cab here. My car wouldn't start this afternoon. But what about...
I told you to get that old thing checked before, didn't I? You can head back with me after this. Anyway, I gotta go. See ya. Be careful, okay?
I meet the smile he hastily throws my way with a frown of my own. What does he mean by that? But before I can ask already, he has turned his back from me and is walking away, without a single explanation whatsoever. In some desperate effort, I try to catch up to him, if only to know what warranted this sudden departure and his odd warning at the end.
Hey, be careful! About what exactly?
Only for my attempts to be interrupted by a muffled ringing from my pocket. Mum's cheerful voice greets me as soon as I answer.
Yes, I'm at the party already, Mom. Yes, I'll say hi to her if I can.
The conversation itself doesn't last long. Just a simple hello, a reminder to enjoy the party, and to send their regards to their old student. But when the call ends and I get to look up, Ashton's already nowhere in sight. With a sigh and admittedly a little disappointment, I tuck my mobile back into my pocket and head inside. Even with familiar company, however coincidental this meeting is, this is somehow shaping up to a terrible evening. The party hits full swing an hour later, with the host opening remarks given. Still no sign of her husband, the poor woman, and the guest promptly fed. The band shifts the melody to a livelier tune. Soon, laughter and the rhythmic tapping of shoes filled the room, all in accordance to the lifting strains of music. It seems fun, I admit. Fascinating at certain moments. A flurry of dancers making the music their own, almost with no care in the world. If I weren't so indisposed, I'd have joined the crowd for a song or two. There isn't a lack of invitations anyway. Plenty of them, in fact, with some asking more than once. It's only my stubborn refusal that prevents me from joining them. And I can. A single nod is all it will take, and the evening would have been far enjoyable for me. But pride in my own silly hopes, the thought of being seen with one of them by him, curbs that, as much as I hate to admit it. Because doing so also means outright acknowledging the douche's claims. That he has to be the one to tell me that still sends my blood boiling. I would have preferred someone more agreeable, less of an arse. It's a hard truth to swallow, especially when the very person at the center of it makes denial difficult. Can't even spare a minute of his attention or a single glance at me the whole evening. Hell, Zachary might have spoken more words to me. The big guy's busy covering the event to boot. But at least he manages to slip in a conversation or two between takes. Or a small wave of his hand when he passes by. What's Ashton's excuse? He's been flitting in and out of sight the whole time. One moment he's hanging around a small group. In another, he's hovering around a string band. Just a second ago, he's wolfing down some devil eggs by the buffet table, glass of wine in hand. The next thing I know, he's gone. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he doesn't want to be with any of his friends. It is because his boss is here? What's the big deal about that? It has never bothered him before.
I swear, the next person who asks, I'm dancing the night away with. Ashton can go fuck himself.
You would catch his eye a lot better if you wore nicer clothes, don't you think?
Her voice almost makes me jump. Too focused on the gobshite wandering around the ballroom. in my own annoyance to notice. If she's heard any of the profanities I've mumbled, or she's taken notice of my discomfiture, she makes no comment of it, merely greeting me with a smile when I turn my attention to her. Mrs. Hannah Wright gives off a whole different air when she's not speaking to an audience. Homely, a bit too friendly for my liking, but I guess that comes from being raised in such an environment and having to deal with pompous, snooty people. Though, I suppose nothing has really changed from years ago. I remember her... Oh, what is this? I remember her carrying herself in the same manner during that one and only visit. Oh. Does she remember any of it? I won't be surprised if she doesn't. It has taken me a while myself. She's probably met a lot of people like little Becky throughout the years. Might have already forgotten about me or my parents. People like her thrive on connections, after all. Nevertheless, I return her smile, awkward and stiff as it may be.
Didn't realize the housewarming was going to be this fancy. I would have gone with a nice dress if I knew.
Oh, you're fine, dearie. It's only really the... well, haven't you? Those who climb, that come to these parties all dolled up. Quite the black-haired beauty, isn't he?
It takes me a while to realize who she's talking about. Oh no, this is gonna be like a repeat, through her perspective. Until Ashton walks by again, in closer proximity than any of the times he has done so far this evening. Still, without a look of acknowledgement our way, though, even if Mrs. Wright speaks loud enough to catch the attention of anyone within earshot.
Who, Ash?
You know, you really shouldn't have turned down those offers. If I wasn't married, I'd happily go dancing with those young men. But you said a name. Ash. That's the exquisite lad you've been looking at all this time. I don't know him, and I'm the one hosting this party. That must mean you know each other. Is he your boyfriend then? Because that would explain those rejections.
This isn't the first time someone has made that assumption. Almost every student I've had in the past did. My co-workers, more often than not, assume he is. A few of my neighbors also think we're an item. Not that Ashton has ever reacted to those. He's been quite indifferent about it, in fact. Still, the heat of a blush creeps up my cheeks. I deny already, despite wanting it to happen so badly myself.
Oh, what? No, that's ridiculous. He isn't my boyfriend.
Such a violent reaction. A simple no would have sufficed. Many here would be happy to hear it.
And I haven't been looking at him.
I do my best to summon a straight face, but before her good cheer, it easily falters.
That's right. You've been staring. Quite heatedly, in fact. Although I'm not sure if you look like you want to kiss him or kill him.
It's more the latter currently.
Just don't go murdering him on my property. I don't want to walk into a room and suddenly find a body there.
It's infectious in a way. No sooner, I find myself enjoying our chat more than I've imagined myself to. Although her attention briefly wavers at one point, she remains a good companion. Even more once I've mentioned who my parents are, her face quickly lights up, and fondness graces her face, despite the meeting from several years ago being a short one. But of course, there are some things we really can't avoid talking about. After all, it's one of the few things I remember her asking me the moment she spotted little Becky in the room. Do you have a boyfriend? In retrospect, it's an odd thing to talk about as children when there are loads we could have started with.
Yes, oh, I remember you. You were the cutest little thing with glasses. And when we met, lad called something with an A.
I believe I still have the clothes she gave me. Chosen, all so I could impress him. And even back then, Ashton has always been denser than a rock, and that one attempt to get him to notice backfired spectacularly. Sure, he's keen, he's a detective for heaven's sake, but feelings, more often than not, escapes him.
What was it again? Aaron, Alan, Adele, Albert,
Adele.
Alexander, Andrew?
Which makes this whole talk all the more embarrassing. And the more names she lists off, the more my discomfort grows until my smile turns into a grimace. What will she think of me? Here she is, married to a man she mostly probably loves at that, while I'm still stuck in the same place, yearning for the same person.
Ashton! Ash! That man is that boy! The same one. Oh, goodness me, after all these years! I can see why, though. He's quite dashing.
You don't really need to announce it to everyone with an earshot, you know? Keep it down.
I'm so sorry, but it really is cute.
She says that. For a short moment, a hint of pity flickers in her eyes. I take that as a chance to change the subject before anything more can be said over the matter. I haven't even figured out how I should feel about the things Luke told me. Now I'm being dragged into a similar discussion.
This is a nice party, Miss Wright.
Though, to be frank, I doubt she'll be so willing to pass this up. The topic has already captured her attention.
Please, Hannah's fine. We're friends of a sort, aren't we? We must be friends, seeing as I know about your little infatuation, Becky. Don't you worry, dearie. You'll have your happy ending yet.
I'm not too concerned about that, am I? That's not what I'm looking for.
Oh? And what makes you think that? Doesn't everybody want their happy ending?
The idea of happy endings sounds like they're just for fairy tales.
Happy ending.
And they are, sorta. I don't think you can just sit around, trapped in some tower and hope for the best. If you love them, you have to fight for it, right? You're not just going to sit there and hope that everything will just fix itself on its own. Like everything, you have to work at it.
Hypocrisy, that's what this is. How dare I preach about something when it's exactly what I've been doing. And then, I go and act as if I'm entitled to any of it. That, by virtue of us growing up together, he must return whatever I feel for him, that he's not allowed to look at another, because I'm the one who has stayed by his side the longest, when, in the first place, Ashton has always been his own person. This is something I cannot force on him. I can only hold on to these, take care of it, until the time comes I can confess it to him. Great if he reciprocates, but if he can't, if he won't, selfish. I've been too selfish. How laughable that Luke's words still strike true up until now.
But what do I know?
I'm sure the daughter of the two greatest professors I've ever known is smart enough to know what she's talking about.
At one point, maybe I would have easily agreed to that. However, the past weeks have also seen changes in the way I view things. As nice as these things sound, it turns out whatever I previously know may not even be true for other people, or for myself. It is sobering and almost funny How things I might have said with much certainty before now has doubts muddying each of them. But there will be time to mull over these later, because when the hush suddenly descends into the room, a whole different issue rears. Especially when fucking Luke, strides into the now quiet ballroom, fashionably late and oozing with the same pompous mien he always carries around with him.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Enjoying the party? I hope I'm not too late in welcoming you all to the right mansion.
Before long, Hannah leaves my side to join him, and doesn't take a genius to piece it all together.
Welcome one and all to our humble abode. Tonight, if you have yet to find yourself in your roles, you are our ladies and lords of the court of your king and queen, if you would excuse my presumptuousness. So, enjoy the feast that has been laid out for your senses, as we only allowed the best to be served. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone!
His attitude, the manner he carries himself around people, his unfamiliarity with that part of the city. Of fucking course. I should have known. Although I'm partly at fault here, tabloids and gossip columns have never been really my thing. I should have also expected that wherever Luke fucking Wright is, some sort of drama will sure follow. He seems the kind of person who revels in it, figures it will find him on its own, even when he's not asking for it. It happens amidst the round of applause and hoots that people lagging behind the crowd they've gathered does not catch on, until the cheers turn into several scandalous gasps.
I am pregnant with your little bastard. You promised me you'll take responsibility. God damn it, Luke. I finally got you to talk to me after months of silence, and you do this to me.
What do you mean you're pregnant with... Luke, is this true?
Lies and slander, woman! Security! Yo, Hans, take her out of here before she makes an even bigger fool of herself!
No, you do not do this to me. I was so ready to leave my stupid oaf of a husband. I told you to leave that damn wife of yours. Look at her. Does she look like she wants a baby? Does she look like she could take care of a baby?
The commotion doesn't go further, despite the drunk woman appearing like she has plenty more venom to spill. In a little while, security shows up, escorting her out. Apparently, she's the chief inspector's wife, too. As if this whole thing can't get any more fucked up than it already is. What a mess. But the damage has been done. And beyond the repercussions this will bring, I'm more worried about Hannah. Maybe Luke, too, in part. I've seen the man that hides behind his self-importance. And it is someone who cares for that person who stands beside him. No matter how questionable that is now. Rochelle, Alien, how are you? After all, no anger is worse than that of a scorned woman. And Hannah, well, as refined and well-managed she is in front of her guests, I'm not sure if she'll be all too willing to tolerate this. Her party, her home, her husband, and that woman has just dared to walk over it. It's in her eyes when she turns to her, the face of someone who demands she be given the same respect she has long deserved.
You are no longer welcome in any of our estates, our properties, and our businesses. And we will no longer patronize yours. Now, escort the girl and make sure she isn't standing even an inch within our grounds.
Hannah's outrage is a strange sight to witness. Even those smiles and the grace she has carried herself through the entirety of the party. Like this, her eyes burning bright with fury. I don't doubt she can do so much more. Ruin the scandalous woman if need be. Shaming her is already an act of mercy, Generous enough coming from her.
You won't show your face to me ever again if you know what is good for you, Rochelle. Take her away.
No one protests, not even the subject of her ire as she is forcibly dragged out. Even the smile on Luke's face wavers when she eventually turns to him and pulls him out of the room for a talk of their own. For a brief moment, there's a concerted effort between those left in the hall, a short second of tense silence while struggle to figure out what to do with themselves. But true to the kind of talk these situations attract, it doesn't last too long. Soon, chatter explodes throughout the whole ballroom. Worried murmurs, clicking of tongues, and inappropriate gossip filters through the thick tension in the room. Most of them haven't even left the premises and they're already talking about it. Tomorrow it will be on the news for sure, in every local broadsheet and tabloid in Luxbourne. I couldn't care less about any of it. Simply thinking about this already gives me a headache. When the shock has faded, I just feel bone tired. I've accomplished nothing of what I've come here for, and apparently Ashton has disappeared sometime during the commotion. I'm not sure what pisses me off more. That he has ignored the whole evening and might have just left without saying anything? Or knowing he obviously has some other motive for being here. Can he at least trust his own friends for that?
He didn't have to hide it from me.
The only relief to be had in this, perhaps, is Zachary's comforting smile when he approaches. He appears as disturbed when he stands beside me, fiddling with the buttons on his camera, even though the device is off.
Eventful night, huh?
You can say that again. It was awful.
He pauses for a moment, stares at me intently. Then he laughs, a tired one but filled with humor, in spite of what we've witnessed.
Let me guess. Ashton.
Oh, what makes you think he's my problem?
Just a hunch. And, it's all in your face, actually.
Why does he have to? I don't understand that man anymore.
Like I always say, you should just...
Oh, you can bet your ass we're going to have a very long talk. I'm not letting him off easy this time.
I'm sure he has a good reason. He won't say it, but he likes being around us. Heck, we're probably the only people he likes. He ain't gonna ruin that for something stupid. He can be dense, but he ain't dumb.
But that's exactly what I've been telling people, isn't it?
We'll see about that. I just want to go home. Are you done here?
Nah, sorry. I can't until the party ends.
It's all right. I'll just take a cab or something. I'll see you later, Zachary.
Before removing myself from the room, I lay a comforting hand on his arm. He'll need it among these people. And then I am gone, more than ready to end the disastrous night as early as possible. As it turns out, the night isn't done with me yet, because no sooner has the porter closed the door behind me, I find myself standing alone in the foyer with one Luke Wright. No sign of his wife. Just him and the agitated clicks his shoes make, while he treads around the empty room, away from the media's prying eyes and their guests' judging stares. It's easy to glean how much this scandal has him shaken. Not to the point where he has utterly lost his composure. He appears to have mastered himself enough to not to. But an ample opening is there for a nervous edge to show on the lines of his shoulders.
What do you know?
The man is not as tough as he makes himself out to be. Sure, I've seen this before, briefly in that 1 second in the hallway at school. It's a strange matter, however, to witness this out in the open. Behind closed doors, this is the real Luke Wright. Though maybe that's because he hasn't noticed my presence yet, busy as he is with his thinking. If he's aware, I doubt he'll be acting like this. His pride is one thing he will never wear with him. Even now, when I place a gentle hand on his shoulders and he whirls around to face me, there's a second-long moment of anger flashing across his features before it dissolves into confusion. He tucks it away as soon as he can, but it does nothing to change the impression I've built of the man in my head.
Daisy, must you be everywhere?
We've only met 3 times, Luke. Quit the dramatics. Besides, shouldn't you be aware of who gets invited to your party?
If I was, there wouldn't be any of that steam tonight. That munter wouldn't even get an inch within this property. I'd better off Luxborn if I could.
He probably pawns everything off to their servants in Hana. Pompous, elitist douche.
Did you just come out here to lecture me about it? Because, Daisy, I've had enough of it for one night. I don't need to hear another one.
You are a very unpleasant man.
So I've been told. Will that be all? If so, I suggest you go back and join every bloody goss in that room.
Not everything. It's unpleasant and frustrating talking with this man. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, at least. Questions and criticisms aren't lacking, of course. But right this instance, there's only one that comes to mind. Is it true?
Is there some truth to it then?
To his credit, he does appear extremely offended and repulsed by the notion. His mortified expression alone answers the question, but I want to hear it from him, even if he takes nothing sort of derisive tone just to answer that.
Daisy. Oh, Daisy. If you believed every scandal that came along, I'd have 100 children already. Do me a favor and give me a break. I've got enough of this false shite from the tabloids.
Well, I'm sorry for asking. I just wanted to hear it from you, douche.
And now that you've heard it, does it change anything? Are we going to start seeing miracles now? A solution to poverty? Pigs flying in the sky?
Is some friendly concern such a hard thing to comprehend for you?
He pauses at that. Suddenly, he doesn't know what to do with his hands, and in the end, he simply stuffs them back into his pockets and sulks. I'm not too shocked it has caught him off guard. There probably aren't many people who tell him that. He's a difficult man to get along with. Zachary probably won't want to be anywhere near him, despite the man having the patience of a saint. Ashton he can tolerate, maybe, though I highly doubt he can keep it up with Luke. Dealing with him requires more than patience. It's a huge mystery why I still bother. When the awkwardness passes, mostly coming from him, he merely glances away.
Maybe. I don't need your stupid friendship.
Good heavens! I really want to ask how Hana's able to deal with you.
He's interested. I can tell from the frown he shoots my way. He's likely wondering how I've ended up knowing her. I'd humor him any other day, probably tease him about it and keep him guessing just to annoy him if I'm in a good mood. But my own patience is nearing its end. I was kind of hoping that her story would finish here before I stop. After Ashton, after the whole fiasco here, and now him, he won't even answer my own questions properly. Why should I answer his? Moreover, there are other matters more important than that. His marital problems. First and foremost, his attitude towards follows right after. Concerns aside, I can't help with those. Those are things only he can fix, and it's definitely not by standing around here. Just leave. So with a slight wave of my hand, I end it right there and walk away from him. Although I can't resist the urge to glance back before I leave, if only to have one last look at the man he really is. But the instant I turn my gaze on him, I see it. Looming, hovering over his shoulders, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Like the first time I've stepped inside this place in search of Isabella, he was there too, wasn't he? That man along with his wife and another person, Miss McCullough. And that shadow, no, a woman now. Her, no longer a dark blur. Terror rushes through every vein in my body, a crippling sensation gripping every part of me, while she stares at me with a glare filled with nothing but hate and venom. It's like staring at the eyes of a woman I've unknowingly robbed of something precious. I try to say something, a warning, but before I can gather my wits and voice it out, someone shuts the door behind me, as if to keep the outsiders away from the secrets this mansion possesses. Oh my god, still not. The brush of fresh air against my cheeks does little to dampen the chill in my bones. By now, the sensation, the fear, and the disquiet it leaves whenever I see her is familiar enough for me. Already it has made a home in my nerves. I don't even notice my trembling hands until I cross my arms across my chest. The cold from the tips of my fingers seep through the thick material of my shirt. Neither of it is helping me help bring together some semblance of coherent thought in my head. But I know. I know I should.
Someone has to tell that douche.
She's gonna go back in. As she was about ready to leave, Rebecca caught sight of the sulking Luke. She asked if the accusations were true, wanting to hear the truth from him. Luke rudely told her not to believe everything. Frustrated, Rebecca left, but not before catching a glimpse of a shadow standing behind him. I start walking back before fear can cripple me again. It's not wise. Returning, that is, especially after what happened. But Hannah's still an old friend, and Luke doesn't deserve whatever misfortune the letter might bring. Cool. I can't just leave these two in there. Isabella's right. She's real, and there's something she wants from everyone who has read that.
Becca, where'd you go off to?
Oh no.
If you're done here, let's go. I'll get you back to the city.
My mistake. The second his voice cuts through the crisp night air is that I've allowed my annoyance to get the better of me. Fuming, purpose forgotten, I whirl around and march towards him. One accusation after another piles up at the tip of my tongue, ready to be hurled any moment. Alright, it's been 2 hours, I'm gonna stop here. Wow, her part of the story seems really long just because of that talk with... Because all she does is just talk to Luke. And whenever she talks to Luke, it takes forever for the conversation to finish. Alright, thanks for being here, Leon. Have a good night. Bye-bye.